So here's the thing. Many Christians in the US are debating whether to vote Democrat, Republic, or whatever other party in the US right now for the upcoming elections. But I think at the end of the day, there's a bigger debate here. Does the Bible encourage us to vote at all? Is voting at all allowed and biblical, a principle that Jesus would have done at the time? As Christians, we shouldn't rely on what the media says, what YouTube says, what any other person really says, your favorite pastor. We need to rely on what the Bible says. And so today we want to do a deep dive. We want to look at, should you vote as a Christian? Should you be involved in politics? And if so, at what kind of rate? And in the end, we'll sum all these things up, give you some practical advice, how you can change your life, and maybe then have an answer to this very important question in your life. And my goal for this video is that you can go from here and then have an answer in your life to why you should or shouldn't vote. So let's get started. So we will look at the key passages that are involved with the word voting in the Bible and what it says about them. Then we will look at the application. And finally, I will share my personal recommendation, what I would recommend you to do. So let's start with the first point. So in this section, I've got 5 different passages. I'll link them all here, but we'll go through them one by one. And the first one is from the Old Testament. And we need to look at this passage is Exodus 18, verse 21. And there it says, "But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy, who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens." So we see here there was a vote that was needed. They were to appoint these people that had a position of authority, and wise decisions were expected. So we see at the end of the day, there has to be someone who makes decisions, and to put someone in power to make those decisions, there's a vote needed. So it isn't something that's totally foreign to the Bible. So the next passage is 1 Samuel 8, verses 6 and 7. And this is all about the situation where the people of Israel were in the land and they wanted a king. And it says there from verse 6 onwards, "But when they said, 'Give us a king to lead us,' this displeased Samuel." So Samuel was a prophet. So he prayed to the Lord. And the Lord told him, "Listen to what the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king." So this is quite a sad moment for God, because he is really the king of the world and the king at the time in Israel, and the people are like, "Wow, we want kings and queens like the nations around us. Give us a king." And God's like, "No, they haven't rejected you, they've rejected me." So we see that this position of authority that is required to have leaders in society is a very human thing, and it's also not something that God wanted from the beginning. The next passage is from Proverbs 29, verse 2. And it says there, "When the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan." So at the end of the day, there's 2 things. You can either choose a wise and good ruler, or you can have a wicked ruler. And I think in today's society, it's basically the same, right? If you look at the US, you've got the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, who you would deem righteous and wicked, that's for you to decide, or maybe you shouldn't even decide this thing. But I think there's always one possible outcome. Like God, at the end of the day, would have someone in power that maybe you wouldn't even dream of voting for. And therefore, indirectly, you're going against God's will. But we'll get down to that later. So the next passage from Romans 13, verse 1, is all about respecting authorities. And it says there, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God." So at the end of the day, God is at the top. He says, okay, this is the political ruler, and I've established them, and we need to respect that decision. So I believe we need to respect these governing authorities, whoever they are, because they have been instituted by God. 1 Timothy 2 verses 1 to 2 is our last passage that talks about voting. And this one is all about praying for leaders. And Paul writes, I urge then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. So we need to pray for our leaders. And that means we also need to respect them because God has put them in place and they have been chosen by God. So there's no black and white to say, oh, you have to vote or you shouldn't vote for political leaders in today's society and in our world. But I think there's an application that many are missing and that is super valuable and we will have a look at right now. And I think that's a hard one. There are people who will go both ways. They'll say, well, you totally should vote. It says in the Bible, da 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 da, and this is why. And there's others who said, well, maybe refrain from that because you might be putting people in power that God doesn't want you to be in power. And so we're going to go through this discourse and dive deeper into the arguments and what I think you should then do in the last point and what I recommend. So first of all, let's go on a thought experiment. And I think this is a very important way of thinking about this. You vote for party A. I won't even name any here because I don't want to be roasted in the comments. You vote for party A. God, however, has a different plan. He puts party B in charge. So now we've got a problem, right? We've got party A you voted for, party B that God's put in charge, and there's a conflict. So you have indirectly gone against God's will, not that you intended to do exactly that, but that's what you've done indirectly. I think it's also really important to then think that Jesus is our King. Like, there's a passage, John 18, verses 36 to 37. My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is of another place. You are a king then, Pilate said. Jesus answered, you say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. I think another good passage in Revelation 17 says, this is a whole book is about speaking in pictures, and here the Lamb is representative of Jesus. It says, they will wage war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will triumph over them because he is Lord of Lords and King of Kings. And with him will be his called, chosen and faithful followers. That's the hope that we will have, that at the end of the day, the Lamb, which is a picture of the Lamb that was slain, Jesus who died on the cross but was raised again, he will fight those who are the unbelievers and will then be in the kingdom with hopefully every one of us who is a believer. And I think we need to think about our attitude towards the world. Like, if you are super involved in politics and you think you should vote, then maybe this verse is one for you. Hebrews 13 verse 14, where it says, for here we do not have an enduring city, but we are looking for the city that is to come. Everything in this life is meaningless. And so you might be involved in these politics and all of this stuff, but God's saying, no, we have to look for the future. We have to live as if we were Abraham with a tent in this non-enduring place. And we need to always be prepared to move, be prepared to do whatever God says. And that, in my opinion, also means that we shouldn't be too involved in what's going on in this world by being involved in politics and voting. Romans 12:2 also says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So, two great passages to show us that we need to be transformed. We need to think about the next level, what comes, what's in the future. 1 John 2 verses 15 and 16 say, Do not love the world or anything that is in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. So the world introduces us to these three stages of sin that are prevalent in every aspect of our lives. And we shouldn't love the world around. We are in the world, but we have no enduring city, and we need to love Jesus and the principles of God and try to be more like Christ. So you need to ask yourself, is voting a worldly thing? Maybe not as such, but you are involved in the world. You are putting your allegiance in human leaders, and it can take away from the focus on God. The future is what we need to focus our lives on right now. We need to prepare for that eternity. And so this life is a boot camp, a preparation camp, and every aspect of it needs to be focused on what is to come. And throughout the ages, the people should have known that God is their king. Right? There's verses like Daniel 2:21, where it says, He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. God puts in these kings, and He's the ultimate master of creation. The question is, who do you trust more? Do you trust God and His Son more? Or do you trust human leaders? Psalm 146 verse 3 says, Do not put your trust in princes, in human beings who cannot save. In other words, put trust in someone who can save. Or Isaiah 33 verse 22, For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king. It is He who will save us. I think it couldn't be clearer that our focus on this life isn't about humans, and voting is putting your allegiance in someone who is just as problematic and sinful as you. Two more verses fit quite nicely here. Titus 3 verse 9, where it says, But avoid foolish controversies and genealogies and arguments and quarrels about the law, because they are unprofitable and useless. Or 1 Corinthians 1 verse 10, right at the beginning of the letter. I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, that you all agree with one another in what you say and do, and that there is no divisions among you, but that you be perfectly united in mind and thought. And that's the things we need to focus on right now. That's the things that are important. Those are the things that matter way more if you vote or not. But I think if you go down this human road, you will be caught up in so many issues and problems that will distract you from the real purpose we are here on earth. So you might have heard through this whole session, getting to my personal application, I think I should not vote, and I do not vote because my allegiance is with Jesus. I want Him to be king. I look forward to that kingdom where He will be righteous. He will be the only good leader. And I think there's a few Christians out there who might have missed the point and who are voting because that's what you do. That's what the world says. I'm interested to hear your opinion, so please drop a comment if you agree, or if you don't agree, I'm happy to have a chat there as well. And if you're interested in another video about biblical stoicism, which is maybe something that you wouldn't put together, stoicism and the Bible, but it'll be over here, you can watch that. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless.